Okay, good evening. As Andy said, I'm Marcus Robinson from Microsoft. So what I'm going to do is, for the next 30 or 40 minutes, talk to you about value stream mapping and a bit about why we used it and what we did to identify how to work with our customers in the most productive way. A bit of context first. I'm very much a technical person. Those of you who know me know that I'm really into tech. Many years ago, electronic engineering at uni, and very much deep in Microsoft technologies, virtualization, containerization more recently, things like that. I have had to manage people in the past. I had my own company prior to joining Microsoft, about 15 people, based in offices in York and Leeds. Managing wasn't something I particularly enjoyed, to be completely honest, and I thought, look, I want to get to back being a technical person, hence joining Microsoft. So I took up the position to be a technical evangelist. As far as I was concerned, this is about as technical as you can get. 100% technical? Yeah, I reckon so. And what do? So there's two parts of my job. One is working with customers on generally short-term projects. We call them hacks or hackfests, so internal projects. And our teams around the world do this. And it can be on a range of tech. You can see some of the technologies we've been working on. Conversational platform, things like bots, cognitive services. We've got things like Cortana, machine learning. This year, they've got things like mixed reality has come into the spectrum. Linux on Azure, OSS DevOps, which are probably more the areas that I'd focus in more. Okay. And we do these hacks all over the world. So I believe this is NEC in Japan. Okay. Work with companies large and small. This is with Arc Systems, a startup in Leeds. Okay, we did a project on DevOps processes and also migrating them to Azure services. And all sorts of types of organizations, all different verticals. So this is a games company in South Korea. So a wide variety of things. But my focus has been DevOps and open source technology. So the focus being finding companies that are using open source tech and making sure it'll work on Azure as best as it can run anywhere. Okay? If that requires coding and modification, pull requests, then so be it. We'll go and do that. And we feed back to engineering, how can the products be improved, and write case studies to make things easier. Is anybody here from Call Credit in Leeds? Yeah, we've got a few people. I have to be careful what I say then. A few people recognise them. So DevOps. So when I introduce DevOps to organisations and I also speak at community groups, that's the other part of the job I mentioned, we talk about people, processes and products or tools. And I've always been, again, very strong that, look, I'm a products and tools person. Yeah, I can do a bit of the people, I've had to in the past, and the process, yeah, I understand it, but I'm rooted in the technology. That was until we got the remit for these DevOps and open source technology projects. So it's a bit small here, but we have what we call a win definition. So I had a quota of these projects I had to do in a year. And the remit is to be considered an OSS DevOps win. Each engagement must generate a technical evidence write-up. Cool. That's like a big long blog post. Lots and lots of markdown. But also documentation of a value stream mapping exercise. What's one of them? Okay, was my initial reaction. All of a sudden it dawned on me, this being 100% technical, I was going to have to go and talk business process with customers. But, we'll see how we get on. So, for the rest of the talk, I'm going to tell you a bit about the history of value stream mapping and my experiences, and we're going out and actually doing this in the field. So, a bit of history. Toyota and the Toyota production system, they sort of revolutionized the way that production systems work, okay, creating an automated pipeline, and sort of founded the concept of lean manufacturing, as it was. And then, in the 80s, this started to be formalized more in various books, Taiichi Ohno and the Toyota production system, and then the talk of lean production systems. So the Toyota production system was all about having a smooth flow of removing blockers. Okay, and then we've got this Sloan report on the lean production system, much more about removing waste. Okay, what wasteful activities have we got in the production pipeline? But very much focused on manufacturing. And again, this developed more and more. People saying, look, this has really revolutionised the production of cars and the automotive industry. And then in 2003, it started to be applied to software. So we've got these two books, Lean Software Development and the updated version there by Mary and Tom Pomperdek, and they talked about software development tools. Okay, number one being value stream mapping. Okay, and this is where this value stream mapping, as far as I'm aware, came from. Okay, when it's related to software engineering. So what is a value stream? Okay, anybody? What is a value stream? I think it's easier to start from the end. Value. Okay, what do we class as value? When our product or the work we've done gets into our customers' hands and everybody's maybe not happy, but they're getting the value from that work we've done. Okay, so that's the end of the journey. But what's the start of that journey? Okay, is it an idea? Okay, could be someone has an idea and they go, yeah, let's put that in the backlog. Okay, I'm sure some people work in that sort of environment. Could be a phone call. Okay, bugs, support desks. The help desk says, we've got a problem. Okay, or we've got a feature request. It makes its way onto the backlog. It could be a new contract or deal. Yeah, and we'll see an example of this shortly. So the value stream is the journey that we take from that initial idea and making its way onto the backlog, okay, and through the software development process, okay, all the way into production, the point where our users, be that internal users or external users, get value from that. Okay. This is an example of a value stream map. Again, back to the automotive industry. So we'll see here, we start down with the deliveries come in, and it goes through roughing, machining, assembly 1, assembly 2, shipping, and then eventually gets delivered. Okay, and we look at that process and how long does each stage take? Okay, and we're going to look at the similar sort of thing with software. So this is an example that one of my colleagues has done of a value stream map. We can see right at the beginning, the first box is feature request review. So they decide what's going to go into the backlog in a feature request review, and going into there we've got the help desk or the customer. So these features come either from the help desk or from the customer. Then we're mapping the process through architecture features, work planning, development, testing, deployment, testing, production, and then informing the customers it's there. And we can see some of the tooling that's used as well. So that was quite a simple one. Okay, we'll get much longer ones. The record one of my colleagues did was 25 meters of whiteboard paper. So again, similar sort of thing, but we've gone into a lot more detail about each stage of this process. I'm going to talk through this in a bit more detail shortly. I quite like them on whiteboards, but again, there's one there someone's done in Visio. Okay, they obviously didn't like it in the rough state, so we can do that as well. So why do we do value stream mapping? So it helps us understand our process. Okay, how often do we actually go back and look at our software delivery process and what we're actually doing? We build our pipelines. We do our work planning. How often do we actually go back and think, why are we actually doing that? Discussion. Okay, we cover an end-to-end process. So it's not just development, it's feature ideas, help desk, okay, our customers at the end. How often do we get everybody in the room speaking together? So it's a great way to foster those discussions. It brings out waste, and you'll see how we do that. So what bits of our process are wasteful? And most importantly for us, why were we doing it? Okay, so we were going to a customer to do these hacks. These hacks would generally last 3, 4, 5 days. That's not a lot of time. What can you do in 3 or 4, 5 days? So what we did the value stream map, and then we identified areas that we could actually go and work on. Okay, and say, yeah, in 3 or 4 days, we can target that area and get a lot of impact. And out at the end of it, we can get a case study and prove we've actually done something. Because if we go in, with a vague aim, at the end of it, what have you done? But by actually going in the beginning and saying, look, we've identified this issue, this problem, No, this is how we're going to improve. I'm going to talk to you about how we carried out value stream maps. It's not black and white, okay? Do it the best way that you want, okay? Every organisation is different. There's different write-ups in books, lots of different videos online how to do it. It's up to you, but the concept's generally the same. Essentials. So I always used to just carry a laptop around, okay? I turned into someone who was carrying around a pack of whiteboard pens, sellotape, and a roll of whiteboard paper. It's actually now become stock for everyone in my team to have these whiteboard paper, if anyone's using the rolls. So, yep, I'd recommend whenever you go and speak to somebody, be it about development processes, take lots of whiteboard, because when you get there, you never know what space you've got. So yeah, I was carrying those around. And the next big challenge was people. Yeah, I was trying to avoid people, but we had to arrange these days, these value stream mapping days, envisioning days, what we want to call them. A software development process, who's involved in the process? Who might be involved in that development process? Who puts the ideas on the backlog in your organisation? Everybody. Everybody. That's one way of putting it. Yeah, could be customers. It could be certain parts of the business. Who's doing the development? Is it software engineers? Is it outsourced? Have we got testers? We've got QA team. People putting into production. We've got people doing sign-off. Have you actually tried to get all these people in the same room for a day? Yeah. It's a bit of a challenge. So one of the biggest challenges was trying to get everybody in the same room. Free food. Free food. Well, it might work for us, but not always everybody. So that was a big challenge. And you'll see when I go through some of the case studies, the ones where we had everybody in the room versus not very many people in the room, how things work. So the first thing we do an architecture overview. Give everybody an overview of what the application does. Because quite often, because we get so many varied people in the room, they don't actually know what's going on. They just know this is the application we use. They don't actually know how it works. And they don't need to know every little in-depth technical detail, but they do need to have a good overview. So everyone then knows what's being delivered. And quite often, when people draw out architecture diagrams, pain points come out straight away. Okay? Because you say, look, where's your architecture diagram? Some people might have a nice Visio diagram, but most places, give them a whiteboard and a pen. When they start drawing out that architecture, the debates start, how it's actually put together and how it actually works. And we always focus on the production architecture, because you get a lot of people go, it depends. It's key when you're doing value stream mapping to try and eliminate it depends. We need to focus on a specific situation. So focus on production architecture, because otherwise people go, well, it's like this now, but it's going to be like this. We don't care, because it might still be like it is now in 6 months' time. Just because you know it's wrong doesn't mean we're not going to talk about it. So it enables everybody to get a basic understanding of what's been delivered. So this was with Call Credit, with organisation in Stockport, Numero, that came on board, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But the interesting thing with Call Credit was a lot of the team hadn't spent a lot of time, because they'd acquired Numero, hadn't spent a lot of time with the Numero team. So there's people in the room from 2 different parts of the organisation learning about the actual product and what they were going to deliver. So this architecture being drawn out was the first time some people had seen it. Okay, people had phone calls and things, but not in the same room. Rules, class rules, really important. Okay, at the beginning, no blame culture. Be open. The more open everybody can be, the more successful this exercise is. Okay, eliminate people blaming each other. No finger pointing. No silent objectors. One person speaking at a time. And no us versus them. You get a lot of that, especially between when you're handing off into production, support teams, or it's the developers, or it was the support people, they don't do this, they don't do that. Eliminate all of that, okay? Try and everybody on a level playing field, no rank, okay? And we select a scenario. So that scenario could be something new, a new feature that went into production or was going to go into production, or release, a recent release. It has to be a certain, again, we want to get rid of all this, it depends. So we want to focus on something specific. We also talk about bugs or service incidents and map from when that incident occurred to how it was resolved. Okay, has there been a recent downtime or service affecting incident that we can look at and map? And what we do, we start by bulleting the steps. Okay, nice and straightforward, just to get an idea of what went on. Okay, and you can see we then group them into stages. We could map every single little bullet, but in the few hours that we spent with organisations, that just wasn't feasible. So we group it into larger stages. And we create little boxes. Okay, see the box here? And each box represents a part of the process. So we give it a title. Okay. We say how many people are involved in that process, either who they are or what their roles are. And then we talk about the process time, how long was actually spent doing the work, and what the lead time into that was. So how long did we have to wait before we could actually start doing that work? And that gives us a total lead time. So lead time is process time plus wait time. And you can see we always start with the customer. Okay, the customer really should be the start and the end, ideally. Quite often the customer just is at the end. But the key thing is, as you'll see, we draw this from the last process backwards. We start with what was the output, what was the value, and we do it backwards. It might sound a bit odd, but actually when you do it, it makes a lot of sense. You say, look, what steps had to be complete to get to this next step? Yeah. So we start mapping these processes right to left. Okay, drawing these boxes out. Not allowed to talk about the future. This is very much a retrospective, how things are. Everyone always wants to say, look, we're going to do this. I've done a lot with containers. Everyone says, we're going to containerize this and that'll solve that. No, we talk about how it is at the moment. Yeah, and you see it gradually builds up. It's very much a fact-finding exercise. Once we've got all these tasks outlined, we start to talk about waste. What parts of our process can be improved by removing waste? So the term muda for waste in Japanese, the Toyota system, they looked at removing waste and blockers. And we have different types of waste. So implementing lean software development talks about partially done work, extra processes, etc. And we have these in the table that we hand around. Okay, it's our slight variation on this. So we have defects. When things have gone wrong, could be broken builds, incorrect requirements, manual processes when we have to do something, meetings, manual deployments. And you'll come across some of these in the case studies. Just waiting for something. Might be waiting for compute resource. It might be waiting for somebody to sign something off. When are we leaving work partially done? When are we switching between tasks? Extra processes, unused documentation. Quite a lot of people spend a lot of time writing docs. Does anybody ever look at that documentation? Do we need it? Extra features. Why are we actually doing this code? Are we actually going to use it? And heroics. You'll see a lot of this in one of the examples. So is the one person that this process is relying on? If that person wasn't there, what would happen? Okay. So how do we do this? So we get the process mapped out, and we get a red pen, and we do little bubbles with the types of waste. You can see on this board here, I drew out the different types of waste. Another example, and we did this every single engagement. We followed the exact same process, identifying the types of waste. And again, and we try and get everybody in the organisation to come and identify this waste. Hand the pen around. Get those people that just sit there quiet, say, look, you must have an idea where we're doing something. Where's your time wasted? Yeah. So we also look at scrap rate. How often does this process fail and we have to go back again to the last stage? Okay, what's the scrap rate? Okay. If we've got a very high scrap rate, generally it means it's something earlier in the process is going wrong. Okay. And what we can do is look at the process time and lead time and multiply that up. If we know it fails, every 1 in every 2 times, well, actually it's double. Yeah. And then we group the processes with a blue pen. Okay. To try and give, it depends how much detail we've got on the map. If we've only got a few stages, I won't bother with doing this, but if we've got lots, group it up so it makes it a bit easier to understand. So we can see, on this map, these stages, the total time was 3 months. Those, again, 3 months, 4 weeks, 3 days. It doesn't matter how granular you get, months, weeks. Some of these projects we looked at, the total process time was 8 months. Others was a week. Yeah. So be as granular as you feel necessary. And we add up the lead time and process time per group boundary and give us a total. Okay. After all that, it's time for the green pen. So how can we improve? This is the time everybody's always been waiting for. Yeah. Put your ideas down. It could be anything. What are we doing wrong? Yeah. Or how can we improve? How can we eliminate that waste? Okay. So I'm going to move on to some case studies. So the first thing I want to say is I'm going to cover 3 organisations. I wouldn't say they're particularly typical, okay, but they've got interesting stories that I can pull out. I want to say thanks to these organisations for allowing us to talk about these. They're all successfully now, there's a startup in there deploying software into production. So we are identifying areas they can improve, but I don't want that to detract from actually, delivering good software. Okay, but it's all about looking at how can we, get better. So this is a small startup. Their process was very much ad hoc and manual, to be honest, and it took a lot of effort to drill, grab what that process is. See, very simply, planning, development, deployment, testing, production. I added a stage in here called tweaks, because actually I didn't know what else to call it, but every time something was deployed, it was tested by, there was only, 3 or 4 people in this startup. It was tested by one of the senior management, and then said, change this, change that. So I added that as a step, just to really, point out, look, if this had been defined earlier, we'd be better. Right, first thing, dev. Most of the development was done by a single person. They had the CEO was a subject matter expert, but not technical particularly. They had someone doing some sales. They had a developer. They had another slightly technical person. But Luke was doing most of the development. And Luke had his headphones in, head down. What if he wasn't there? What would happen? So that's an example of heroics. Tweaks. As I say, lots of developer time spent refining features. So you can see, we've identified here wait times and extra features and tweaks. So there's a lot of this cycling. I think, here you can see times 8. So I said, look, how many times do you reckon once you move a feature to testing? So I was saying to Luke, you say you've done with this. How many times do you have to add more functionalities? Not just fix bugs, change this feature. Sometimes it was 10 or 20. Iterate round. And that would be down to poor original requirements. The requirements weren't defined. The guy whose company it was knew what he wanted, he thought, and then it was actually when he saw it was different. I'm sure we've all been there. Manual testing. I'm sure lots of people are still doing manual testing, but there's a lot of things we can automate. Okay. So manual testing was wasting a lot of time, again because Luke was doing the development, Andy and Angela were carrying out the testing a lot of the time. You had to wait for them to be free. Andy had his main job still, the CEO, so he was off doing that for a week, nothing would get tested. As I say, it's a small startup, but we see this, and how can a small startup improve? Next one, this is a public sector organisation. This software was used for managing rights of way and identifying when stalls are broken and things like that by a county council. So let's have a look at a few of the things in there. First one, Ed. This is the biggest example of heroics I've seen. So Ed, the project manager, has been there for quite a few years. Ed was involved with everything, absolutely everything along the way. So Ed, let's come here. Requirements and design, Ed was doing that. Development, the developers, there's a team of 4 or 5 developers would get on with things, but then it came to testing, Ed did the testing. There was some automated tests, but Ed did a lot of the manual testing. Then they had to get sign-off with the business before they could do a release. Ed was the one that negotiated with the business. And then, Ed does the release notes. And then once the release notes are done, they get sign-off and they can actually do the release. And they did the release out of hours, and again, Ed had to be there. So if Ed was on holiday, development happened, but that was about it. If Ed left the organisation, where would they be? 3-week lead time between signing off on a release and the actual release. So because single services organisation, SSO, so their IT was managed by a central part of the organization. So when they needed to do a release, they didn't manage the infrastructure it was being released onto. So they had to get in touch with the services organization to schedule a backup of the data. Okay. At the same time, so they had to schedule a time that they could be available out of hours to do a backup. And generally, they said that took about 3 weeks. Okay, between them saying, right, we've got the software ready to actually being able to schedule a release. Okay. Yeah, differences between test and production environments. Who's got identical environments all the way from dev, test, production? Yeah. So many issues are caused by inconsistencies in environments. Yeah. And this was happening here. And it wasn't just inconsistent environments. They were deploying onto different operating systems. And not just different operating systems, but Windows and Linux. So that they were developing on Windows. They had certain components deployed onto Windows because that's what the team were familiar with. But they'd had an external company initially do the version 1 of this application or version 0. Whatever. And they, it was this open source project that was running on Linux. So in production, it was SUSE Linux, 32-bit. So that's what they were deploying into production. Yeah, so absolutely. By the time we got to production, you had no confidence that what they'd written was actually going to work. And the deployment was manual. Okay, so there was downtime involved. I said, so what is your release process? Okay, I'm the guy. So what is your release process? So it was always the same guy, and Ed did the release. One evening, once they'd managed to get single services to get the time booked in. Oh, we just do it. What do you mean you just do it? Oh, well, I just deploy it. So what, do you copy some? Yeah, we copy some files. I said, you've got a list of steps or anything like that? He pulled out his notebook, went back, and there's his list of steps. That's his deployment steps. I said, do you ever miss steps or things go wrong? Yeah. And he said, is that not a problem? But it's how they'd always done it. They've been doing it this way for 4 or 5 years. So absolutely. So every time they deployed, there was downtime, there was forgotten steps. So actually, you can see the solutions here. I didn't really talk about the last one. But the solutions are generally the same, time and time again. I thought hopefully everybody here, that leads DevOps, you're familiar with DevOps practices, and you're going, well, why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? So here, cloning environments. So they were moving to Azure. They were on an on-prem, it was VMware environment, and they were looking at moving up to Azure. So, we used infrastructure as code to make sure that every environment was identical. And it actually meant, although they didn't have experience of using Linux servers, we had a platform as a service offering that sort of abstracted that away. They just chucked a container onto it, and it didn't really matter. Deployment scripts. Creating them some deployment scripts. Not rocket science. And also a pre-prod environment. Because they'd never tested with live data. Well, until they actually released their product, that was the only time it had been written on the live database. And again, SQL scripts have been executed against this Postgres database. So we had a pre-prod. Microsoft Visual Source Safe. I can't even say it because I haven't used it for so long. Years and years old. So they couldn't do multiple checkouts. Only one person could have anything checked out. No branching. Incomplete code would be getting shipped because they'd have to, all working off the same code. People laughing, who's still using Visual Source Safe? Shared databases, not supported. Microsoft has stopped supporting it years ago. They got a Postgres driver, DevOps, which was years old, and this was one of the reasons they had to be running unsupported .NET versions, and they're using Visual Studio 2010, so it was all ancient. Why were they using all this? They'd already got the licenses, they got agreement with Microsoft. It was this one driver, this Postgres driver, that cost about £150 that nobody would have approved the budget for. One of the senior management was in when we were doing this exercise. He got his credit card out, went to a laptop, said, done. But they're not, they've not had this discussion. They've not been all in the same room. And we see these same things over and over again. I've done everything from small startups to big banks, and you get the same things over and over again. So this is the call credit example. Okay, call credit numero. Yeah, first of all, having everybody in the room. Okay, it's more of a challenge with larger organisations. Yeah, you can see which parts of the process we had representation from. Yeah, dev and release, lots of information. Coming down here in the sales, proof of concept and planning stages, not a lot of information. They were too busy. Yeah. Deployment, a little bit of information. Support, who knows how it's supported? We just give it to them. Yeah. About right. Yeah. Recognise that? Yeah, so it's really important to get everybody in the room. This is one of my favourites. Not on the lorry. I think, as you know, Alex Carter, she came up with this. So issues can be introduced a long time before any technology is involved. Okay. So what had happened here was there'd been a sales meeting. Account manager or somebody had spoken big deal with the customer and they wanted a feature. Said, yeah, we'll do that. Signed on the line. Yeah. They'd not had a single discussion with the development team or the technology teams about it. Yeah. Yeah. So that sales process took 2 months. So yeah, absolutely. Once they got sign off, they were great. You know, if they needed this feature, fair enough. Yeah. But it shouldn't have ever been on the backlog. It should never have got there. Not on this lorry. Not on the lorry. It shouldn't have even been going into the building. Yeah. Development process. Lots of manual deployments. You know, people at Numero and Call Credit were great. They were dead open to being completely open and honest. So all these little reds here, you know, I'll share the slides. They're all M's. Manual, 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 manual. Yeah. And lots of waiting. Every time they did a deployment, you know, it would take time to wait. So there'd be one deployment there, 6 deployments here when they could split it out for different testing environments. And these were all manual. They had some scripts to do it, but another 2 deployments there. Lots of waiting for these deployments and lots of manual steps. Builds. They're using Jenkins. Fine, you know. We do a lot of projects with Jenkins. Yeah. Anybody got builds that take 8 hours? Yeah, we got some nods. I was going to say. Come close. Now, it didn't just take 8 hours, but about 50% of the time, you know, I asked people to guesstimate, it failed. So they'd set it off at 5 o'clock, you know, set off the builds, come in the morning, and it's either passed or failed. What happens if it's failed? Click go again, 16 hours. Yeah? So what was the cause of this? There was some hardware bottlenecks, but the key thing was redundant tests. Yeah? They've been, you know, foot to the floor, developing. And a lot of functionality has changed in the product, but a lot of the tests were irrelevant. They're not needed. Okay, but they still took ages to run. They just needed taking out to work out which tests were needed and which weren't. Yeah? Tech debt, they just need to spend the time doing it. Okay, they did get the time after this discussion to actually go in and do this. Yeah? Why are we taking, you know, why are these builds taking 8 hours? Yeah, so what do we need to do? They need to fix some of the tests that some were failed sporadically and remove some redundant tests. And they're using very old versions of Selenium and things, again, causing things to be slow. Production deployments, manual. So this product, I think they were managing about 60 different versions of it to about 30 customer sites, actually on-prem deployments. Okay, every one a different version because a customer only got the new version when they paid for it. So if they didn't pay, they didn't get the next version. Yeah. So they're actually maintaining 60 different versions over 30 different sites. Yeah. I can see when Microsoft turned to Windows 10 and get everybody on it and, you know, on a automatically updating because, you know, managing old software is not pleasant. Yeah. Yeah, so these deployments, one site was using Octopus, I think. They had some hosted builds using Octopus, but a lot of manual deployments, copy and paste. It's the only access they had to these environments were over RDP. You know, RDP on, copy and paste. It happens. It worked. You know, it worked, but it's not the most efficient way of doing things, is it? Yeah. I say, look, if some customers don't upgrade, how long is it before they actually get value? Never. Infinity. You know, so I took pleasure in doing a little infinity symbol there. I said, look, you know, this value stream map for some customers, they never get there. Is that wise because they haven't paid you or not? That's a business discussion. It's not just a technical discussion. Yeah. Yeah. So hope those cases were useful. I think I'm not here to sell anything at all. Okay, last time I did this, some people going, this is a bit of a sales slide, but I think it's worth saying, what did we do to solve these problems? It's very simple, and this goes cross technology. So we use Visual Studio Team Services a lot, similar to Jenkins, things like that. It has a bit of planning like Jira. So a lot of the organizations we go and deploy Visual Studio Team Services. We do a 3 or 4 day proof of concept act with Visual Studio Team Services. But the key is, all we're doing is improving that planning process, the backlog, work planning, and adding automation. Be it improving the build scripts, test scripts. Automate. Hopefully everybody there knows that. But to actually have it documented and how much time that organization is spending on these tasks, creates a big impact. And they go, why haven't we done this years ago? Next one, consistency. So we're using Azure. The beauty of the cloud is you can use templates and infrastructure as code, configuration management. You can do it on-prem as well, but it's a lot easier in the cloud. Same with CloudFormation on AWS. But consistency. The other big thing we nearly worked on in every project was making sure there's consistency from development all the way to production. There's lots of ways to do it, but it saves a lot of time. Okay. My learnings. So I was a bit pessimistic about doing this at the start. I just wanted to be in the tech, but I've learned a lot. I've got to see a lot of different organizations, their development processes, and it's very valuable. I now want to value stream map everything. Internal processes at Microsoft, you can imagine. But I walk into any organization, I go, why are they doing that? Why are they doing that? I want to map it. You can value stream map nearly anything. It doesn't have to be software development. How little time organizations actually spend doing retrospectives and getting everybody together and looking at existing processes and how they can improve. That time is soon clawed back, with a little bit of work. Need to get everybody involved. People know about the issues and they can go, there's a support issue, but they can't actually do anything about it. With the example of the old software and someone got that credit card out, if that person hadn't been in that room, that issue would probably have remained for years to come. So it's really important to have the right people that are empowered to do things. It's a big driver for change. And it also, for me, all the hacks we ran, I was able to, at the end of the hack, say, look, this is what we've done. This is the problem it's solved. It's solved this organization. X minutes, hours, days, weeks, months. So it's a great story at the end of it. It really helps justifying the work you're doing to the organization. A couple of bits of feedback. It's not just me, it says it's great. Value stream mapping exercise wasn't just useful in terms of laying out the technologies and processes. It's a bit of trust and familiarization exercise for the teams and individuals we found extremely valuable. And then one of my favorites, actually isolating and realizing how much waste was interesting to me. I knew there was quite a lot, but identifying exactly where and how much that there was essentially a green light for further work into improving the build system. Someone actually went, right, well, why haven't you spent a week sorting that out? Book a week in your calendar to go do it. If anybody's interested in any of these, there's case studies from around the world there, just a couple that I've done. They're all online. I'll share these slides via Twitter, or I'm sure Andy can circulate them. So all these value stream maps are all there along with the technical work we've done. This, the value stream mapping process for software does come out of this, the implementing lean software development. Lean Enterprise is another interesting book to read, and then the value stream mapping book, if anybody wants to know more about this, I'd highly recommend reading those. So hope you found that useful. Go away and maybe have a talk with the organisation about giving this a try. Doesn't matter if you don't do it exactly the same way. Just start small, okay? And just choose that little bit of the process that you can potentially improve on. Cool, thank you.